This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I know we don't film this anymore, but maybe we should, because every time I introduce this, Joe just gives me an eyeball.
I mean...
Hello, this is my husband Joe, and I'm Vicky and Fraser. Hello, welcome.
Gee. It's not like I pass you an eyeball, though, is it? You have the standard way of doing it, and then you go off-piste and do it differently. It's weird.
Well, I'm just trying...
It confuses me.
Trying new stuff. And trying to be... I don't know, I feel like maybe we should just launch into it without doing any of the welcome preamble.
Okay.
Maybe we should ask Podfly to pull out the most hilarious part of the episode, like the first 30 seconds, and stick it on before the opening credits. Because I heard other people do that with podcasts, and I think it works really well. Hey, Podfly, how do you feel about doing that? I can see them now, they're like,
what? What do you want?
No.
What do you want? You can't give us business instructions whilst running the podcast?
Oh, but we can.
Mental.
Anyway, so, what are you reading, Joe?
What did I gave up on something?
You gave up on Umberto Eco, and you're now reading... Why do I know this? You're now reading The Pillow Book by, say, Shonagon.
Shonagon. Yes, I'm now reading the Pillow Book by, say, Shonagon, which is 1,000-odd years old and all about political nonsense and social goings-on in Japanese court.
It's basically a little journal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit like Lady Murasaki's diary, which I was reading a few months ago.
Yes.
It's been made into a film with Ewan McGregor and Vivian Liu.
Oh, really? I kind of gave up on Umberto Eco because I didn't get it. I don't know if that's because I'm not bright enough to get it, or if the book of essays I was reading was of its time, but I kind of didn't get it. Most of the book seemed to be full of rants where he bemoans people owning mobile phones or reading newspapers or being on the train, or...
I think maybe...
I just got a bit bored of him being, like, angry with people.
Oh, I think maybe you possibly missed the point a little bit, because I think he's an observer of people, and I think he was...
Well, what I was reading was him being a criticizer of people.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, okay. I have not read this particular book of essays. I've only read... Did you get to the coffee pot one?
I don't think so.
Because the reason that I bought that particular collection of essays is because in there is a little essay on coffee pots and the terrible coffee pots all around the world, and it's just really funny.
Oh, complaining about coffee pots instead of people. Right, okay. Complaining about people's coffee pots.
I mean, clearly he's not for you. That's fine. Okay, so you abandoned that and now you're reading The Pillow Book. Cool. Are you enjoying it? I
haven't really got very far. My recreational reading is done in the 6.5 minutes between getting into bed and falling asleep. So what I want to do is actually be mildly entertained and have a nice 6.5 minutes. I don't really want to get my brain stretched too much.
A nice 6.5 minutes, eh?
If I'm lucky. But so I tend to go for, like, books that aren't very, like, worthy.
Well,
I like a bit of Pulp Fiction, and I like a bit of nonsense sci-fi, and I like a bit of...
There's nothing to be ashamed of. You should not feel like...
I'm not being ashamed of it.
Good.
I don't know why you're implying I'm being ashamed. Do you think I should be ashamed?
Because you had a look on your face and a tone in your voice that was like, I just tend to go for books that, like, aren't very worthy. And it's like, all books are... That's not true. Not all books are worthy.
Not all books are worthy. I've read some shit in my time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. Hopefully by the next podcast episode, you can let us know what you think of The Pillow Book.
Cool.
You'll have read another page.
Talking of unworthy shit books, what are you reading?
I'm reading The Wheel of Time book 2.
Yeah, you are so hooked. You're going to have to read all 15 books now.
I don't know.
Gonna have to.
Just don't know. This book is annoying me a little bit. Like, the end of the last book annoyed me, and now this book is annoying me because it hasn't answered my question about the end of the last book.
Ah.
Do I need to keep reading?
You need like another 9 books or something before you find the answer to that.
Okay, well, whatever. But I also started reading My Mess is a Bit of a Life by Georgia Pritchett, and it's really funny. It's she is a screenwriter who she's a British screenwriter. It's really funny because I realised that she was a screenwriter for some she lives in Hollywood. She does Hollywood screenwriting. And I knew that, but when I started reading the book, I was like, this sounds very familiar. I was like, this sounds British. And she is British, and she grew up in Britain, and so that makes sense because I was reading it. I was like, this sounds very familiar. Like the life. I think she's about my age, maybe a little bit older than me. So I think she's a little bit older than me. So the things that she was describing was like, this is like familiar from my childhood. Anyway, she has anxiety. She's very anxious, and so she's written this book about her anxiety, basically.
Cool.
And it's really funny. It's in the format of really short anecdotes, like usually less than a page long. And they're like, there's just loads and loads of them. And I'm just like, the one that kind of made me laugh but also broke my heart a little bit was where she was the last kid to be allowed to leave her nursery class because her dad had turned up and she could see her dad over there, but she wasn't allowed to leave. And the reason she wasn't allowed to leave is because he'd forgotten her name.
What?
I know. And after that, and he ended up being like, oh, she's small, she's got curly hair, she's Emily's friend. And after that, she was really anxious that maybe she wasn't who she thought she was, and maybe she was Emily's other friend. And it just like, I obviously have never had anything like that happen, but that level of anxiety and the like ridiculous lengths that your brain will go to construct things to worry about, it really spoke to me, and it's very funny and well written, and I'm liking it very much.
Okay, cool.
It was recommended to me by my MA tutor because of the subject that I want to write about for my end of module assignment, and she was like, go and read some of these books, and so this was one of them.
Cool.
It's good. So that is what I'm reading. But yeah. And we'll be talking, obviously, a bit more about writing in a minute. But first, I know everybody will really want an update on what's going on at the Dingle.
Yeah.
So we dug out the compost heaps the other day.
So I took the top foot or two off one of the compost heaps. We have two compost heaps next to each other. Technical discussion. You want two compost heaps so that you can exchange between them and turn one over into the other.
Yep.
Took a couple of foot off the top of one of them. Then took about a dozen wheelbarrows of lovely black, rich-looking compost. Put it on the veg beds.
Yes. And I cleared out all the veg beds, and we made soup, leek and potato soup, out of all of the rest of the leeks that we dug up.
Yep.
It was very nice.
And then turned all the compost heap over into the other compost heap. And now we have one compost heap full of compost, which is kind of ready to go, and one compost heap that is not quite ready to go yet.
And the chickens had a great time.
Chickens had an amazing time.
They were really helpful.
Everybody had fun.
And I have planted all of my garlic, shallots, and onions for this year.
Nice.
Let's see if they grow, because last year none of my onions grew. None of my alliums grew.
It was an onion year.
It was an onion year, yes, it was. But I tried to grow them from seed last year, which is why I bought little bulbs this year, because I was like, clearly I cannot grow onions from seeds. So
We've had success with garlic before.
Yeah, well, the garlic's cloves. It's elephant garlic this year because we've got so much normal sized garlic that I was like, I'm not going to buy normal sized garlic.
Right.
Plant normal. It's massive elephant garlic.
Massive garlic.
Yeah. So yes, and the let's update people on the poo pits, because I think we have mentioned that before. So we have been looking to upgrade our sewage waste treatment system. And we had a quote finally arrive after a site visit that made me go, ha 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 ha, fuck that. And then I sent it to Joe, and you basically said the same, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, what they're asking for is enough money for us to buy our own mini digger, buy all of the equipment, do all of the trenching and laying of pipeworks and digging of holes and plumbing it in and wiring it in ourselves, and we would save about 50% of the money and still have a mini digger.
So we're going to do that.
So it's like...
Well, I think what we're going to do... So, yeah, they basically quoted us 25 grand plus VAT.
25 grand?
And the actual piece of kit that's going in the hole, and this is just one of the pieces of kit, but the main like fancy piece of kit, the waste treatment plant, it's $2 grand. So we're like, okay, where's what? And they
where does 23 grand go? Okay, I need a couple of grand on pipes and a couple of grand on...
But okay, so we were really generous and we worked this out, and we were like, okay, maybe there's 10 grand's worth of actual kit, right?
Maybe.
But then, how many people are they going to put on our garden for how long to make that up to 15 grand for labour. So anyway, they didn't break, and the reason that we're like, is because they didn't break any of this down. They were like, oh, installation, 25 grand, plus 850 for a ground survey, plus 380 for the building regs sign off. And
Plus VAT.
Plus VAT. And so I actually have just sent an email back to them saying, can you break that down for us, please? Because that's like someone coming to me and saying, I really want to do your private book coaching. And I'll be like, amazing, that's going to be 15 grand. End of discussion. End of discussion. And
no more information.
It's like, no, you need to know how long it's going to go on for, exactly how many calls you're going to get, exactly what support you're going to get in between, all of the, stuff that goes into my book coaching. And so they did do some preamble, but they didn't break any of it down. And it's like, and by the way, we paid for this quote. So we paid 200 quid for them to come and do the site visit and the quote. So it's not like I am asking them for cheeky proprietary information so that I can, we have paid for this.
Yeah.
So yes, we are thinking now, because that's a large heap of money that we don't want to spend. We're thinking, we'll pay somebody to design the system for us.
And then we'll just
do it ourselves. Yeah.
How hard can it be?
Famous last words, watch this space. So anyway, this week we are talking about the writer's most important tool. Do you know what that is, Joe?
A pen.
No.
A brain.
Oh. No.
No?
No.
More important than a brain?
Judging by some of the books I've read.
Okay. A laptop?
No.
The internet?
No.
A coach?
No.
A chair?
No.
A keyboard?
No.
Paper?
What do I take everywhere with me all the time?
Everything. About 56 books, a massive sack of things, at least 4 bags, multiple trips through every door in order to shift all of your stuff through the doors.
That's not true. None of that's true. You're making me sound like a terrible human.
A notebook.
Thank you. Yes.
In fact, about 3.
Ruined this entire episode.
3 or 4 notebooks.
Many notebooks. I have many notebooks. But this is the writer's most important tool, and I will fight anyone who disagrees with me.
Okay.
So yeah, I have many notebooks. I have a tiny little notebook by my bed. I have my daily notebook that my to-do list goes in. I have several to-do lists all over the place because otherwise my world will explode. Things to don't, yeah. I have my creative writing one, which is what I'm using for my course and also for, snippets of writing that I'm actually writing myself. I've got a copying one, which is when I read something amazing, I'm like, I'm just going to copy that passage and copy it out word for word. Obviously with the credit and where it's from, because that is the thing that I use. I've got my notes on my iPhone. I've got my voice notes on my iPhone, and I've got my Remarkable.
All of the notebooks in the world.
All of the notebooks in the world. So yeah. But they're important and I need them. And the reason that I need them, I will come to in a moment. But you might be wondering what I note down in these notebooks.
Do you have a notebook that is a catalogue of what's in all your notebooks?
No. And the reason is because even though I've just described all of those different notebooks, it really just depends on which one is closest to what I write in it. So...
Right.
So, no, but what I do have...
That's a cool system.
What I do have is sticky notes that I can write on that I sometimes use.
Colour-coded, post-it, sticky page marker things.
And highlighter pens.
Okay.
And that could work pretty well because then I'm like, okay, well, I have this thing on this topic and I'll colour-code it orange, and then a week later I'll forget.
And then you got Notion where you put all of your stuff as well.
Oh, God, yeah, I've got Notion as well, yeah.
It sounds like all of your stuff is spread thinly throughout the universe.
Yes.
Okay,
What's
cool.
your point?
It sounds complicated and hard.
Have you met me? Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm complicated and hard.
Okay, cool. So convince people that your system is the way forward.
No. I am not convincing anyone that my system is the way forward. All I want people to absorb and accept is that they need a notebook of some kind, some way to take notes. I don't care how many notebooks you have, as long as it's a minimum of 1. Doesn't have to be a written one. It can be a voice notes. It could be on your phone. It does not matter. You just need a means of capturing things, and the things that you need to capture are many and varied.
Okay.
So, overheard conversations.
Right.
So take out your earbuds.
Right.
Like, I see so many people whenever I'm out in public, which is not very often, but, walking down the road or on public transport or whatever, and they've all got their ears plugged in and they're listening to stuff. Unplug your ears. If you're a person who does that and you want to be a writer, unplug your ears and eavesdrop on people.
Engage with the world around you.
Yeah, you don't have to talk to anyone. Just listen to them. Like, I love being in cafes and listening to people's conversations. Quite often I'll look like I'm reading a book, but actually what I'm doing is going. You can't see what I'm doing with my face, but
it was the face of eavesdropping delight.
It was the face of eavesdropping delight. And then I'll be scribbling things down. So I scribble down overheard conversations because that's where ideas come from. Observations of surroundings. So if I go for a walk, I might not have my physical, or a run, I might not have my physical notebook, but I've got my phone with me usually, in case I get axe murdered or fall in a hole. And I will, if I see like a beautiful thing, I will make notes on it, or I will speak my notes, or if a thought comes to me, from a pastoral scene. You're all right.
A pastoral scene.
Yes. Why are you laughing?
I just had images of, nice constable painting or something, nice.
Well, that's what we live in. We live in a constable
nice
painting.
hay wain and a ford across a river, perhaps, or some lily ponds.
Apart from the lily ponds, you've just described where we live. So yes, observation of surroundings.
Right.
Why are you laughing?
No, carry on.
I feel like you're sitting there now going, cool, so now I know what she does all day.
Yeah.
Ideas that pop into your head is another thing that you need to write down.
Sure.
Because you will not remember them. Great lines that you wish you'd written. So if you hear, like on the radio or on a podcast or on the telly or something, a really good line, scribble it down in your notebook or in a book. That's why I have my book of copying. It's like I scribble down.
So if you heard something amazing right now, where is your book of copying?
It's just...
Okay, it's within arm's reach.
Yes, within arm's reach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's within arm's reach. It's under a pile of shit.
There are a pile of other things.
But it's within arm's reach. So what else goes in your notebook? Stories and anecdotes that you might hear or see or read anywhere. What are you laughing at now?
I just noticed the next thing on the list.
Do you want to read it out?
Fine. So after stories and anecdotes that you hear and are exposed to comes the list of transgressions by your husband. Right. I see. It's like that, is it?
Well, no, because, for example, and that's very tongue-in-cheek. I don't record every time Joe pisses me off, which is very rarely, actually. But he is hilarious because he will say something like, he'll mutter something like, it's like being in bed with a sack of weasels, which is not very flattering. Or he will say something like, those trousers make you look like a chimney sweep. And whilst that is mean, it's also really, really funny. So this is the list of transgressions that I tend to record in my tiny notebook, because mostly when you're mean to me is when we're in bed.
Okay. I don't think the audience needed to know that, but all right.
Well, they did, and now they do. So, but yes, so like things that people say that are funny, if you are lucky enough, as I am, to be married to a hilarious man, or at least a man who thinks he's hilarious, you can record all of the hilarious things that he says.
I was right about those trousers, though.
You were not right about the trousers. I've still got those trousers. I like them. What do you mean? I mean... How dare you? Anyway, so why a notebook? Why do we write all of these ideas down? Several reasons. Because you need stuff to write about. And, if anybody... One of the things that people sometimes say to me is, when I suggest writing all the time, writing every day, well, what would I write about? Especially when I say publish it. What am I going to write about? And if you have a notebook and you read a lot, there is really no excuse for ever not having any ideas. So, you're writing in your notebook, you're scribbling all this stuff down, you are never going to be short of something to write about. It also is a good way to see what you care about, because I will scribble all sorts of things down in my notebook, and then sometimes I will go back to it. If I don't give enough context to what I've written, then I'll look at it and go, I have no idea what I meant by that. But sometimes I will look at something that I've written and be like, I don't care about that anymore. And sometimes I'll look at something that I've written and I'll be like, my goodness, that's really important to me, and it will become like an article or a story idea or something like that.
Sure.
So it's really good. But yeah, that is a top tip actually. When you are noting stuff down, record the context of it as well. So if you overhear a conversation or something, like say you're in a cafe and you overhear a conversation, note down where you are and like what you're doing and why you're noting it down. So it's like you scribble down a story and it's like, why was this interesting to you? Because quite often you'll come back to it and you'll be like, oh, I don't really know why I wrote that down. So it might spark an idea for, maybe it reminded you of, an issue in the news, or maybe it reminded you of something that you felt when you were a kid, or
maybe it was only relevant for that week whilst other things were going on in your life or whatever.
Yeah, but you want to know not just what the thing was, but the wider context of it as well. You don't have to write too much, but just a few notes about, just to jog your memory. It's really a memory jogger, the notebook is.
And whilst you are listening to these conversations in cafes and writing them down, you need to try and look like you're not just writing down somebody's conversation.
Yeah, I'm not very good at that. I kind of look like I look like I'm doing what I'm doing. But yes, so yes, it will give you lots of ideas to write about. It will help you to see what you really care about. Third reason to write down things in notebooks is because you absolutely will forget your idea.
For sure.
Even just 15 seconds later, if you're me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. The number of really good ideas I've had, and then I've just lost them. And then it's like I'll spend hours with them on the tip of my brain, and it's like I can almost grasp it, but it's gone. So write stuff down, especially if it's something you're excited about. Fucking scroll it in your own blood if you have to. I'm not even kidding about that, because it's like if that's the only thing you've got to note the idea down, do it. I may have done that in the past. And finally, you will read these notes in years to come, and they will be delightful. Because you will remember things that you have forgotten, and they will make you feel all sorts of feelings. And they're just, little snippets of, like, I wouldn't remember all of the funny things that you've said to me, but I've got all of your transgressions in my notebook, and I can flip back to them. And every now and then, I just flip back and I'm like, oh yeah, Joe said that, and it was really funny. And it just makes me smile.
Okay.
Because it's just lovely. Or, something that a friend has done for you. And, you'll forget about it because you can't remember everything. And then you'll come back to it and you'll be like, oh, that was really lovely. So yes, that is all of the reasons why you need a notebook. But how to use a notebook. And you did ask, you kind of got me to touch on that earlier. But yeah, sticky notes and tabs.
Mm-hmm.
Highlighter pens. Or, that will get very confusing if you're me. I try. It does not work. So what I do is I just flip through my notebooks every now and then. Or I'll often have a vague memory that I wrote something down. And so I might have a vague memory of which notebook it went in because they are all different colours. Or I'll just flip through all of them and have a look and see if I can find it. But like a top tip as well, and this is why I have my tiny notebook by my bed. At the end of every day, I note down at least 3 things that have happened that seem noteworthy. That are just little stories of my life or somebody else's life, because even if they're only tiny things, because that trains us to look for stories in daily life and what happens. So it's like, has anything happened today that that could turn into a story?
It's quite nice to actually be a little bit conscious about how your day's gone and where you've been and what you've been doing and all that kind of stuff. It's quite nice to just have a little moment of reflection, isn't it?
It really, really, really is. And even if, I would suggest that even people who aren't writers or who don't aspire to be writers or whatever, do that, because otherwise I just think you're in danger of drifting through your days.
Yeah, not noticing your life happening.
Yeah. And so many tiny things happen that are a source of delight or joy or, or sorrow or pain. And those things are... And, it's going to go slightly off topic now, but things that are a source of sorrow and pain are just as important as the happy things as well, because we can't always be happy. There's like an obsession for pursuing happiness.
Nobody should ever feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, or that nobody should ever feel sad, and that nothing should ever hurt. And actually, that's a whole half of life that you're missing out on, and a whole half of human experience that you're missing out on. So when you are recording these things, it's not just about, I have a little gratitude journal that I fill in every morning, but I also record stuff that hurts later on, because I want to remember that stuff, partly because it's usually, if it hurts, it's usually going to be important in some way, but also because I think when you look back on it, you can look back on most stuff that hurts at the time, and it's like, well, actually, that wasn't so bad.
You can see that it was transient.
Yeah, you can see that it was transient, and you can see also how it changed you and what came out of it. And not that everything has to be a learning experience or whatever, but I think it's just useful to be able to remind yourself that, because I think when you're in pain and when you're sad, it's really difficult to remember not being in pain and not being sad, and it feels like that's just what it's going to be like forever. And so I think it's really useful to remember that actually you've been in a hole before. That makes sense.
Yeah, and been out of the hole.
Yeah. And that this too shall pass. And I know that sounds like a really like cliched bullshit thing to say, but it's true. It's like, you are going to feel differently about this thing tomorrow. Even in the depths of like clinical depression, you will feel differently the next day, because we always feel differently as, we change. So anyway, that was a bit of a random tangent, but I think it was an important one. So note down 3 things that have happened and train yourself to look for story-worthy things.
Yeah, it reminds you to notice things. It teaches you to pay attention.
There's a really good book called The Art of Noticing that you should totally look at as well.
Okay.
Can't remember who wrote it. It's on my bookshelf down there. It's a dip in and out of book. So it's just like little tips, like if you normally take the same route to work every day, take a different route every now and then and see what changes. Instead of sitting on a bus and reading your book, pick one journey where you talk to a stranger. That sounds horrifying, but you could do it. It's the worst that could happen. I've done that before, and it's actually been a really good experience every time I've done it. I had somebody come and just also do the other way around. I don't know if he was doing a thing, but he just came and sat down next to me and just started talking to me. And like for the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh my fucking God, I hate this. And I ended up having a really lovely conversation with him. So yeah, nice. It's cool. What's the takeaway, Joe Bear?
Carry a notebook. Carry 2. Put one on your bedside table. Buy 20 notebooks. Sprinkle them around. Put them on every horizontal surface you possess. Put them everywhere. Make sure there are 6 notebooks within reach at all times.
Okay, I actually have a recommendation for notebooks. I used to be a Moleskine notebook person, and they're lovely. And then I was a Lichtheim. That's a very horrible pronunciation. And they're very lovely notebooks as well. But now my notebook of choice is Dingbats.
Really?
They are vegan covers. They kind of feel a little bit leathery, but they're not. And they donate a little bit of money to various environmental causes. And they're an old company who make beautiful paper, and they have different animal designs. And also they're the people that I get to personalize my notebooks for people who are in my Weird and Wonderful Book Society. And Joe's just looking at one right now.
It's a nice thing.
It is a nice thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I have an affiliate link for that.
What?
So I know, right? So if you would like to buy a Dingbats notebook, please buy it using the link in the show notes, because then I will get a little kickback.
Nice.
Yes, which is really cool. That's my main call to action, is buy a Dingbats notebook through the affiliate link in my in my show notes. But also just make sure that you have some means of recording your thoughts and observations and other people's stories.
Cool.
Yeah. And also you can get my free writing prompt calendar if you're short of ideas, or you're still short of ideas, at moxiebooks.co.uk/calendar. And you can join Team Moxie, which is my wonderful writing group, which isn't just about writing, it's about accountability. You show up, you have a little chat, you can ask questions, you can have a little chit chat with other people, bash out problems. I know that one of my members joined and is already earning more money than she thought she would because of some advice given to her by another one of my team members.
Nice.
Which is really, really cool. So it's not just about writing. Anyway, we turn up, have a chat, and then we mute ourselves and work on the thing that we want to work on to the exclusion of all else. So even if the rest of your day is just a massive chaos bundle,
swirling maelstrom of nonsense and other people interrupting you,
you want an hour, come join us, meet some beautiful humans, and do a little bit of writing for an hour. And you can join for just 1 week, £1 for 1 week. And that's 10 hours of writing sessions if you wanted to come to all of them.
Nice.
For £1.
A whole pound.
A whole pound.
Shiny pound.
And after that, if you want to stay, it's £50 a month, which I think is still a bargain.
Cool.
And you can go to moxiebooks.co.uk/power hour. We would love to meet you. And yeah, so if you like this podcast, go and subscribe. Go and rate us.
5 stars.
5 stars. If you didn't like this podcast, other podcasts are available. If you liked it, please leave us a review. If you didn't like it, please email me and tell me why. And if you have any questions about writing or publishing or anything else, please email me with the questions and we will answer it, won't we, Joe?
Yes, or email me.
Or email Joe, joe@moxiebooks.co.uk. Quickly rushes to set up that email address. Vicky@moxiebooks.co.uk is definitely going to get to us. But yeah, send us a question.
Yeah.
We would love to answer your questions. When my new website is nearly ready.
Nice.
I know. I'm hoping that it might be ready to coincide with my 10-year business anniversary, which is this year.
What are we going to do? We're going to have a party.
Gonna make a cake. I'm gonna order myself a cake. I'm gonna treat this like a proper thing because I keep missing every single bloody year. I miss my business birthday.
Okay.
And it's 10 years. And most businesses do not make it to 10. Most businesses don't even make it to 5 years. So I think it deserves a cake, and I'm gonna get I might get Sarah over the road to make me a cake.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's gonna be really cool. And so what was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm hoping that my new website will be unveiled around the same time.
Cool.
And on that website, on the podcast page, you will have the facility to click a button and leave us a voice message with a question. So, and we will publish them all. So if you leave us abuse, that also will go onto the podcast. But I'm really excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah. So we will be back same time next week. But first, thank you, Podfly, for always being awesome and making this podcast sound wonderful. Thank you to Harriet for keeping me in line and organised and generally looking after my stuff. Thank you to Team Moxie, because honestly, you brighten every single morning for me. And thank you, Joe, for doing this podcast with me.
Oh.
You're amazing. And thank you to you, dear listener, without whom we would be screaming into the void. Maybe we are.
Maybe we are. Who knows?
We will be back same time next week when we will be talking. Oh no, actually, I think I have a guest next week.
Nice.
Pretty sure either we're talking about whether or not grammar is elitist, or I'm interviewing Lisa Hurley Hall, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, it'll be one of those 2 episodes.
Cool.
But yeah, we'll be back same time next week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and stay weird, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.